Let's go. All right, so I'm Argit Janaqi. I work at Cartesian Lab as a digital forensics investigator, and today I want to talk to you about how private VeraCrypt is on Windows systems, because we don't have time for much more. If you don't know what VeraCrypt is, I don't have time to explain, so go look online. So, is it safe? Well, on the crypto side, as far as we know, it's quite solid. What about the traces of the application activity on the system? Well, if you check the box, then you're fine. Which box? This box. Never save history. So, are you fine though? Well, from a VeraCrypt perspective, you are fine, but the actual issue is not VeraCrypt itself, because when you check the box, there's no history. That's okay. The problem is Microsoft Windows, of course. So, from a digital forensics perspective, what can we look for to rebuild user activity? A few examples here. Typically, some prefetch files are used to improve performance of programs by retrieving data and such. It's quite useful because it also stores the last 10 times a program has been run. The event logs, among other things, keep history of mounting file systems. The shell bags are the registry keys used by Windows to remember the folder display preferences, and there they stay in the registry even if the folders you accessed are deleted. And the jump list, another example, they keep shortcuts of recently opened files and folders, and these too stay on the system even if the files and folders are deleted from the file system. So what does it look like? For example, here we have a prefetch file of VeraCrypt format.exe. We see that there's been 3 calls on 3 specific dates, a few minutes from each other. VeraCrypt.exe, 8 runs on this toy example. Oh yeah, by the way, this is just a toy example, not an actual investigation, okay? And here it's the system events, where VeraCrypt is quite nice because it names its volume VeraCrypt volume, and we even have the volume that it's been mounted on. And when we look in the shell bags or in the jump lists, we see what folders were accessed inside this mounted point. But my container, it's still encrypted, so it's safe, right? Even though there's traces, what can I do? Well, not so much, because if you look at with any decent digital forensics tool, you see that the encrypted files have a very high entropy, so it's not legit. Plus, if you look at the hex headers of the files, you see that it's not an actual zip file, so of course it's easy to identify that it's probably a VeraCrypt container. Moreover, if you look at the calls from VeraCrypt format in this example, you see that the run dates of the VeraCrypt format, are quite similar to the access time and the modified time of the zip file, so you can correlate these events to identify containers. Alright, so let's summarize what I said so far. Windows OS keeps data structures and logs for improved user-friendliness, performance, traceability, etc. But during an investigation, all these are very useful to rebuild user activity quite easily. It's easy to identify also the files that may be a VeraCrypt container, but if your container password is strong, you're fine, as far as nobody can pressure you or threaten you to retrieve your password. So let's be careful about that. This talk could have been called How Private is User Activity on Windows, but I only have 5 minutes, so it's just a toy example of VeraCrypt. What can we do then about this? It really depends on the threat sources you're considering, actually. A company needs these OS logs, data structures, to be able to investigate security incidents. But any private individual, an activist, a hacktivist, a journalist, any person really with high confidentiality and data privacy constraints will have to delete these items regularly. There are tools to do that. You can also consider not using such VeraCrypt things, but use virtual desktop hosted elsewhere, but this requires internet access, so it has some constraints. I hear somewhere people saying, oh, don't use Windows at all, but don't fool yourselves, other systems keep similar traces just in other structures anyway. So the actual way to protect yourself is to do a proper risk assessment of your context, adjust the privacy measures you take and the tools you use to be protected from external attackers. Thanks.